Just because they're unhoused doesn't mean they're not part of our community. That doesn't mean I don't represent them. Are we putting the pieces in place today for the next 15 years? Because I want my kids and other kids like them to have jobs and opportunities, and everybody in our community to have a better quality of life than we did today.
When I spoke at the schools, asking the kids what they knew about homeless people, they're all drug addicts. They're lazy. They don't want to work. They're dirty. They smell bad.
So it's definitely important that we instill that empathy, right away.
I'm not looking for anybody to sympathize with anything, but pure empathy and compassion for other people.
2 mayors ago, they wouldn't even admit that there was a homeless problem because they felt like they would have to do something. It all kind of goes hand in hand when families are struggling to get by. They're just one event away from being unhoused. And we're talking about a $500,000 home for a regular house, right? And we're never going to get to affordable housing if our starting point's way up here.
And the mayor's inviting other people at the table to say, if we bring our energies together, for lack of a better term, what can we come out of with this?
We sit around in that room and somebody's like, okay, I have a problem. And somebody goes, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that what keeps me going.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Lewis from Imagine Marketing. I'm joined with Pastor Scott, who's the founder and CEO of Matthews Hope, as well as Mayor Andrew Connors from Titusville, Florida. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
In this episode, we will be talking with the mayor about the homeless crisis here in Florida, what factors have caused it, what is being done to address it, and how local municipalities can partner with experts like Matthews Hope to achieve better outcomes. Welcome to episode 75 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthews Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. Imagine Marketing is a full-service marketing firm based in Winter Garden, Florida. At Imagine Marketing, we really put the extra effort in to craft a tailored strategy for success. Book a free consultation today. Thank you again, Mayor, for joining us. Can you start by giving some of giving our listeners and viewers some background about yourself?
Oh, man, where do I start? Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And secondly, I love the We Are Winter Garden branded shirt and the Winter Garden community on your laptop. I actually am a little disappointed in myself for not bringing a Titusville sticker.
Oh, next time, please.
Because, I think it's all about representing, our community and taking pride in that. So I love the fact that you do that for Winter Garden because I've been to that community. I have friends in that community. It's an amazing community.
Well, I'm excited to learn more about your city.
Yeah. So Titusville is a great city. I try to describe it to the rest of Brevard and the state of Florida when I'm out and about. And it's really kind of hard to put into words, but what I think is unique about Titusville is, we just put prayer back in our city council meetings. And a part of that process was we had to send out letters to all the, churches within our city. We had over 70 churches in our city. Wow. And so I kind of think about that and relate it to the community as a whole and just the heart that we have in our community. If you need a shirt off somebody's back, they'll give it to you. I mean, they'll run their own mother off the road if they're late in traffic, but, if they need something, whether you need help for volunteering or you need donations or whatever it is, the residents and the citizens of Titusville will step up in amazing ways. Another great story about that, there's a great nonprofit charity called the Children's Advocacy Center. And I'm a major donor to that organization. Like most charities, they do thank you dinners, for their major donors. And so I was at one and I'm looking around the room. I counted 28 people. 14 of them were from Titusville. No. And this is a county-wide charity.
Okay.
So you can kind of put that in perspective, right? Yeah. North Brevard is a small little sliver, but we're a big heart of that. And I don't know if it's because we're still legally the county seat and we should take pride in that, but it's all part of the community and that we feel there every day. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Ohio. Some people might hold that against me, but that's okay. What I tell people is my children were born and raised in Titusville, Florida, and that's really what matters. Because to me, it's not about the next 4 years, about winning re-election. It's about, are we putting the pieces in place today for the next 15 years? Because I want my kids and other kids like them to have jobs and opportunities and just everybody in our community to have a better quality of life than we did today, right? And I think I said it at the meeting we were at on Wednesday, just because they're unhoused doesn't mean they're not part of our community. That doesn't mean I don't represent them. They're here, right? whether you like it or don't.
Yeah.
We're all together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we got to focus on that. I grew up in a small town, 5,000 people, rural Ohio. Kind of, I don't maybe the same as everybody else, but um, I have now lived with biological parents since I was 16 years old. Put myself through college. I came to college as an executive director of a $40 million healthcare facility. Ran that for a couple of years and realized I was making the company way more than they were paying me. So, I tell,
Light bulb,
yeah,
yes.
I tell people all the time, if you want to make what you want, then you got to, do it on your own. Somebody's only going to be willing to pay you as little as they possibly can to keep you. And embrace that entrepreneurial spirit. So since I was 25, I've been self-employed as a benefits consultant, still in healthcare, just in a different way, giving companies advice on how to spend their resources wisely to attract and retain top talent. And that kind of brought me to Florida because I was really, really tired of the Arctic winters in Northwest Ohio. My wife and I are both from there, born and raised. And we were sitting on the beach one day, and I think we're in Siesta Key. And I was like, why don't we live here?
Yeah.
And I go, I'm a nurse, or she's a nurse. I go, I sell insurance. We can do this anyway, right? And so, we didn't have any kids at the time, so we rented for a year in Port St. John. And my wife was a travel ICU nurse, traveled up and down the county, saw a bunch of different stuff, and I rebuilt my business down here, traveling up and down the county, and we decided that Titusville was where we're going to raise our kids.
So you have 2 sons. Have you ever had conversations with them about those that are experiencing homelessness?
We have. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. So, definitely on the younger side. The 2-year-old, I have not had conversations about life yet. I mean, it's mostly about dinosaurs and cars and whatnot.
Body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so whatever is happening on Blippi nowadays. But my older son, Jameson, he goes to South Lake Elementary School, and it's a STEM school, but they're very, very conscientious. It's amazing what the teachers are teaching them. I could even remember conversations driving home from school, and he'll be like, there's trash on the side of the road. Why did somebody do that? Like, they definitely shouldn't have, And so I think the life lessons that are coming are happening earlier and earlier. And, we've definitely had those conversations, he's seen people out panhandling. And he's like, why are they doing that? Well, they're asking for money. Well, why? They don't have any, things cost money. The roof over your head, the food that you eat, all these things. So more and more, I think younger people, even at that age, 5, 6 years old, are asking those questions. So it's definitely important that we instill that empathy, right away, because that'll take you very far in life. I tell folks all the time, it's not about your IQ, it's about your EIQ, that's a big reason why I got involved.
Okay.
So growing up, I kind of had a domestic violent household, right? I did not know what good parenting looked like. So when my wife and I were expecting, I was terrified.
No.
Like how to be a good dad.
Sure.
Right. So I read all the books, and the most impressive one for me, or impressionable, was written by an economist about what the data says about raising good kids. And they said instilling the value of community service is the biggest predictor of success in later life. Well, how do you teach that? Wow.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You got to live it.
Because kids are sponges.
Absolutely. So I think my son was 3 or 4 months old, and I got involved. The first thing I did was I applied City Hall, Titusville City Council, to get appointed to the Commission on Parks and Recreation. Figured that'd be a good way to get involved. Like, I have kids, like we're going to go to parks, right? And so I got involved there. And then like one day I was working out at the YMCA because it doesn't happen very often. I saw some pictures of the wall, and I'm like, oh, we're directors. What do they do? And I inquired, and they're like, oh, they help make sure no kid gets turned away. They fundraise. I'm like, I can do that. So I got involved. And then it just kind of took off from there. Yeah.
So do you go to the gym more now?
No.
Everybody wants to know.
No, not even a little bit. I'll be completely honest with everybody. I do not work out.
Okay, sidetrack. We'll get back to it.
But, the things that we're doing in terms of youth development and teen initiatives, because I really believe that, sometimes you're never going to change adults' behavior. because to my point, like
Yeah.
I'm never going to work out, right? Like I'm just not going to change my behavior.
Right.
But what we need to do, we need to impact the kids. That's how we change our society. That's how we change our culture, is by impacting the kids with the values that we should espouse and live every day.
Yeah.
So after I got involved in the Y, I started making connections between Parks and Rec and the YMCA with different ways they could work together. And that kind of hit me with an idea that this should happen more often and across a lot of different sections. So in partnership with the chamber, we created the Council of Not-for-Profits, where, once a month, the nonprofits got together, kind of shared ideas, shared what was going on. And the carrot I used was some resources, like, hey, like I found this organization that's giving out money. Why don't you come learn how to get money from them?
Yeah.
So you have where all the nonprofits are getting together and brainstorming.
Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yes.
I like that.
And this year it's morphed a little bit where everybody every other month they go to a different nonprofit, help out, volunteer, and still share, network, and things like that. So a couple months ago, we were all at the SPCA walking dogs and the Prison Book Project, learning about what they do. And so it's kind of great to see how that's grown. But, when I started that, I wasn't Andrew Connors mayor. I was just Andrew Connors, so I didn't really have the pull to bring him in. So
Sure.
the partnership with the chamber made a lot of sense. And, again, it just kind of snowballed. Once you get involved, you get more involved, right?
Well, excuse me. And I will tell you that my experience too is, you're right about your city. Titusville is, first off, the chamber is very welcoming, very inclusive, very very involved in the community, which I think is very cool. When we met the other day, I said before we went on camera that when we're in this meeting and all of a sudden we're seeing the top brass of the police department sitting there going, we don't want to arrest people. We're looking for ways to connect them with resources and befriend them so that we can know what's going on. And quite honestly, Shelley was there and Charlene was there, and we're sitting there going like, what planet did we just land on? This is incredible. And, the few times I've gotten to hear Andrew share some of the things that he's doing and things he thinks about and cares about in his community is why we have here today. Before we move on, I was going to just mention, because you mentioned the children, and you got to start there because we probably can't change a lot of the adults where they're at. And something I'd spoken about in some previous episodes that we've done was that how kids have identified certain things. And my experience was, when I spoke at the schools, asking the kids what they knew about homeless people. And a lot of it was pretty rough. They're all drug addicts. They're lazy. They don't want to work. They're dirty. They smell bad. And processing that when I went back to my truck and I sat there and I went, how do these kids at 7, 8 years old have an opinion? Well, they didn't have an opinion. They had a learned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we want to make a change, that's exactly right. I really believe my daughters, the reason they are the people they are today is because that was just part of who they were growing up.
Yeah.
That's where the empathy comes from. I'm not looking for anybody to sympathize with anything, but pure empathy and compassion for other people.
So for the people that are watching and listening and have never heard of Titusville, can you explain to them a little bit more about it?
Yes, Titusville is an amazing city. It's a small town feel with some bigger amenities, but we're located directly across from NASA Kennedy Space Center. So that is our city was built around Kennedy Space Center. So in the Apollo days, when all that stuff was booming, that was just a bunch of nothingness. And the engineers started coming in. They actually had to bus people from Orlando, from places to live, to Kennedy before there was homes there.
Oh.
So the homes then started springing up as we need more people to live here. We need to be a little closer. So that's kind of how Titusville originated. And in 1964, there was a consolidation of like 3 cities that made Titusville. So it kind of snowballed from that. And of course, unfortunately, you see the ebbs and flows of space, because space goes up and then space comes back down.
Mm-hmm.
So when Apollo shut down, you have an economic depression in the city of Titusville and Brevard. Then it happened again after the Challenger exploded, and they took some time off, right? And then it happened again when the shuttle program left, and unfortunately, it's because it keeps going up and down. We haven't had like slow, steady growth. So you got booms and you
Feast or
got
famine.
Yes, exactly. So, but in describing Titusville, it's not necessarily a bedroom community. You do have some people that are aging and placed there, but we also have a lot of young families moving in
Okay.
that want different things. So we're kind of at what I call the crossroads or the growing pains, where we're just trying to get over this hump of we got to keep up with infrastructure, we got to keep up with these things, but also everybody wants everything.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all I know is if I get a Chick-fil-A in that town, I'll be set.
That's right. That'll get you elected again.
Exactly.
Right there.
There you go.
We won't even have to worry about running.
So when you were campaigning for mayor, there were 3 main goals listed on your website: attainable housing, clean water, and infrastructure. Why was attainable housing at the top of your list?
Yeah, I look at the cost of everything right now, right? And unfortunately, the length of time it takes to build a home, permitting, all these things, it was $100,000 before a builder could even break ground in the city of Titusville. So if you look at that, and then cost of labor and materials, another $250,000. Well, let's say it took them 5 years. Of course, they're going to have to mark it up at least another $100,000. And we're talking about a $500,000 home for a regular house, right? And we're never going to get to affordable housing if our starting point's way up here. So we got to look at speed of profitability, not only from a business side, but from a city side.
Sure.
Because the longer it takes for these homes to get open or businesses to get open, the longer it takes for the city, if I'm looking at it as a business owner, to get our tax revenue. And the longer it takes our tax revenue, the longer it takes for us to invest in roads, police, fire, water, all these things. So, unfortunately, I have no control over the Florida insurance market, right? And I can't control that. But what I can control is the more money we get in our city, the less tax burden we have on people, the easier it is for them to get approved for a mortgage, and the quicker we can get them into homes, right? And so it all kind of goes hand in hand when families are struggling, to get by. They're just one event away from being unhoused.
Definitely. How would you describe the homeless situation in Titusville?
I don't have any comparisons compared to other cities, because I kind of just stay in my lane, and I'm only concerned about Titusville selfishly. And
that makes sense. You're the mayor, so.
And
I won't hold that against you.
You get a pass on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't go outside of my bubble often to come to see Scott here, but
that, and there's a lot of things to do in just Titusville itself, right? And it's amazing how many people ask me, "Did you see what Congress did?" And I'm like, "No." I'm too concerned about what's happening in Titusville. But I would say that for a while it was a growing population. I think we might have leveled off, but I also think there's an issue with the counts. Just like anybody that works with the unhoused population, we know point in time counts are not an accurate count. So how are we really supposed to address a problem that we don't know what it is, right? So we had a lot of camps, because we have a lot of wooded area. We're probably one of the few places in Brevard County that actually has land
woods
and things to build upon, right? So yes, while we have gone through and cleaned some of that up, it's still really hard to get an accurate picture of what the problem is, right? And like I was told by one of the local ministries, Life Point Ministry, who works with the unhoused population, 2 mayors ago, they wouldn't even admit that there was a homeless problem because they felt like they would have to do something.
Yeah.
The last mayor, while didn't say it outright from the dais, supported them, encouraged them, came to some events and things like that. I was told I was the first mayor from the dais right off from the get-go said, "We have no problem."
Yeah.
Well, thank you for noticing.
So,
Scott, how would you describe the homeless crisis here?
It's interesting.
Since you got boots on the ground.
Well, yeah, and part of it, the challenge that people in mayor's position is that the point in time counts are way off, and there's a lot. This past year got even more interesting because of the new state statute 1365. Because even for us day to day right now, our numbers went down immediately after climbing, and we couldn't figure out exactly what's going on. We know at certain times when numbers are a little bit less, like the first of the month, for those that get a Social Security check or something like that. So our numbers are usually a bit down. So we understand that trend. But when the numbers came out, this was true for Orange County also. I said, well, once I saw the numbers, I said, then that means Matthews Hope is serving all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, and which we know that's not true. Okay, and then you take a county like Brevard that is long and narrow. It's like 75 miles long.
Okay.
Okay, and the resources are here and there. It's just different than say Orange County. But I will tell you that the numbers are way off. The biggest challenge I see for a lot of these cities also is no two. I think there's actually 17, which is odd. We serve currently 17 municipalities. Mm-hmm. We're getting ready to go, and I think there's 17 in Brevard alone. And because of our new sleeper bus things that we're doing, we're going to be through the whole exact county. And the challenge I see is that there's no two cities answering the questions the same way. And most of them kind of just keep kicking it down and hoping it just kind of goes away. And the problem with that is, if you want to know what the problem with that is first off, recognize that Florida is the fastest growing homeless population in the country right now.
Yeah.
Now, people will say, well, because it's, the snowbirds come down. Okay, so they're snowbirds, homeless people. I assure you, it's not that it's never happened. I never use the word never, but consistently over the last 15 years, 80 to 85% of the people we serve grew up, had a home, possibly a business in the community they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they stay there. And you will actually see municipalities that will dump in someone else's city.
Yep.
The good news for each one of them is within 3 days, those people are going to be right back where they came from. But this is how we years ago, Daytona was actually giving bus tickets to go up north. They'd send them up north. And in a very short time, they found these people were back. They were back because that was home. That's where they went to school. That's where I've watched people come over from Rockledge and they're right back over. Rockledge and Cocoa are right there. But Rockledge is home and they're going to go back there. So I think the one challenge we have is we really don't know specifically what the number is, but I can tell you that number is much greater. It showed just a very small variation this year. In Orange County, it was a very small variation, but I can tell you our point in time count, the part we played in, was significantly up. But what we did notice more than ever is about 40 for us, I think it came out to about 41%, which is pretty consistent with what we're seeing out there. Were either baby boomers or under the age 18.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting. Now, what I see Andrew's up against compared to, he does not have as much as the aging community, but he's got younger people also there that can't either find or afford housing.
Yeah, what are
that's going to create
an issue that are contributing factors to homelessness in Titusville?
Well, I mean, I would say they're the same as everywhere else. Access to affordable housing, the fact that people are living paycheck to paycheck. So one event sets them off, and now they're out of a home or apartment or whatever it is, right? If you look at bankruptcies in the United States, 60% of them were caused by medical bills. 8 out of 10 of those folks actually had health insurance, because all it takes is a $10,000 bill for a family of 4 to get so far behind.
It doesn't take much.
They can't. Yeah, they can't get caught back up. So that's a challenge. So it could just be, somebody experiencing a medical crisis. You have the mental health component, which is a growing need and a growing concern, and a lack of access to mental health care, just in general. And then, obviously we have, drugs that play a role as well. So you have those 3 big factors. I'm sure there's some other small factors, but those are the biggies, and how you tackle them, from a policy making standpoint, which is technically my job is to make policy, is I just try to tackle what I can, right? And that's to see how we can streamline business, make it more efficient, more effective for housing to go up. And unfortunately, there's folks that don't want people in their city. They don't want more people. They want to stay exactly the same. So we have a
How's that going for you?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Excuse me. Yeah.
But we have a lot of single family homes and we have apartments, but there's a lot in between that really hasn't been um, received by some of the policymakers. I have people all the time that say, I left Titusville 30 years ago, came back, and nothing's really changed. Well, what's causing that? Well, it's the policies that have been put in place over the last 30 years that have kept things the way that they are.
Okay.
So we got to look at, rolling back some of that over regulation, making it easier, more cost effective for money to come into Titusville. You're not going to get redevelopment without easy regulation because no business owner is going to invest, $500,000,000 into a maybe.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, business owners are smart. And unfortunately, I've seen that happen. There was an affordable housing project that came before council last year, but it was an election year. So people were very vocal and it got shut down. We're talking about, that company spent $200,000 just to go through the process to get told no.
When did you first become aware of Matthew's Hope and what were your first impressions?
I first became aware of Matthew's Hope. Believe it or not, I sold insurance for a particular company, and there's another agent that was appointed with this company was very involved in Winter Garden and posted stuff all over her Facebook about Matthew's Hope. So actually, for at least 7 or 8 years, I've kind of known about Matthew's Hope over Winter Garden. But then, I saw that they moved over to Cocoa, and so I, again, keep tabs on what's going on in social media, and then had an opportunity to bump into Scott at a chamber event, and it was great because I was just like, hey, I know you're doing stuff down there, but let's talk because, the more we put our minds together, the more we can kind of try to figure out what the best path forward is.
Definitely.
So while trying to tackle this from a legislative standpoint, sometimes, government just gets in the way. And again, you're never going to get any two people to agree on any single issue, right? That's why we have a republic, so people can make a decision. But unfortunately, we have a board, whether it's county commission or city council. Sometimes movement doesn't happen, right? Bureaucracy. So what I've tried to do is use my title for any good I can. And if that means saying, hey, we need to all sit down and figure this out, people are more willing to come to a meeting when the mayor invites them, believe it or not.
Well, I think part of it, and to all fairness to the other mayors out there, quite honestly, it's very rare to get the invite. And, my success, for lack of a better term, in my what I call my previous life, pre-ministry life, I go to seminary to my 30s. I had 20-year sales and marketing, worked for an international company, and did all those things and, ran up the corporate ladder, made the money and had the BMW and got at a different plan. But what I always found, my greatest success always came from listening. And even when I was listening to something I didn't like, at least I understood it. One of the things I used to tell my girls when they were young, they're in their 30s now, but which God just blows my mind to say that.
Take a breath.
But I had to take a deep breath. Ooh, God, I'm turning 63 here shortly, and I'm still trying to get my head around that. I feel younger than that, but I guess most people do. But I used to tell the girls, I said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to believe theologically or politically. I just want you to understand why you believe it and be able to articulate it.
Absolutely.
And we're living in this world that truth is based on whatever you think you heard, and then we're just going to go with that, rather than I'm always the guy who always wants to peel the onion back. I'm the guy that's going to sneak in your jacket, kind of go, I just want to see what's really going on here, right? And because I think that's what we have to do. But when you bring the people that are boots on the ground, and I saw you do this personally, I saw the people in the room. These were people that were from other nonprofits that they're out there. And, we do some things differently as some of them do, but the bottom line is they're out there and the mayor's inviting other people to the table to say, if we bring our energies together, for lack of a better term, what can we come out of with this? And the truth is I don't know where it's all going to work out, but I will tell you that I'm talking to a few of those people in that room on what our next steps are to try to work together, because there's things we can bring to the table that they don't have. And that's going to be the kind of partnership that we can look for. But that all really started with with the mayor's desire to sit there and say, hey, I think we should bring some of these people to the table. Let's talk.
And
And that's huge.
speaking of that, Mayor, you created this council of nonprofits to help foster collaboration. So obviously you're recognizing the value of partnership. What makes Matthews Hope a good organization for municipalities to partner with?
Well, I appreciate the question. So the Council of Nonprofits was, a thing I did with the chamber that's still running. But what I've done as mayor is now kind of elevated it a little bit and going, okay, let's bring people together in different specific, areas of need, right? So the Consortium on Homelessness in Titusville is those organizations that specifically work with the unhoused people. And then we also have some folks that work with the youth that are also meeting, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, NAACP, Parks and Recreation. So they can kind of collaborate and focus there. I'm also doing it with economic development and community events. So I have a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. But, I think what Matthews Hope can definitely provide to some of our groups is just, the experience, some of the knowledge that, because obviously you guys have been very successful at what you guys do. I wouldn't say, hey, this is how you need to run it because I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just providing an experience, that backbone, that maybe even that sounding board sometimes to go, hey, I'm dealing with this. I'm sure you probably dealt with it too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but it was really kind of cool when you sit around that room and that table. Because again, I'm just kind of a fly on the wall. Like I don't really have much to contribute. I'm just a pretty face, I guess. But when you sit around that room and somebody's like, okay, I have a problem, and somebody goes, I got you. Like that is what
happens.
Keeps me going. Is to see that happen.
A lot.
Yeah.
So we are covering a lot of ground in this episode, and there's still so much that we want to cover. Will you stick around, Mayor, and we'll make this a two-parter?
Yeah, happy to do it.
Awesome. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share this, and stick around because we have more coming.